Okay guys, currently working on an artwork and I felt like I wanted to do a quick video just on just some techniques for photo manipulation. Currently building out a scene. It's obviously not finished, but there's just a part here that I just want to cover a few things in relation to how I approach lighting sometimes and fixing lighting and different techniques with some brushes and things to think about when you're lighting a scene or a character, whatever it is. These are just fundamental ideas in relation to lighting. So for this particular artwork, and it started with me using vanishing points. So I started with 2 vanishing points, and then I actually just started blocking it out. So I didn't really have a plan with this. This was just purely creative, just to see where I could go, what I could do, and what might come to fruition once I started building it out. This is purely study, practice, building out a scene. So I literally just put in 2 vanishing points, and then I started, you can see the lines here, I started building out, blocking out the scene with elements in relation to the vanishing points. So that has actually helped me to establish a scene with perspectives that are relatively correct to the eye. Not thinking too much about values and lighting just yet, but then gradually as I got it blocked out, then I started adding in photo elements, bashing in, putting together stock assets onto the block out. And then as I progress further, I then start to think about the lighting. So as I get to a certain point in the artwork, I then think, now I need to probably start thinking about the lighting, because if I go much further adding details, it's going to be a lot more challenging further down the track if I don't establish the lighting earlier. So get the lighting down as soon as you're feeling comfortable with your scene. That's just the way I work. Maybe you work differently. Maybe that's not the completely ideal method, but that's just the way I work. So I had it blocked out, and then I actually went through a couple of iterations with the sky. Once I was happy enough with how I kind of felt like I want the lighting to be in the scene. So instead of the sun actually being visible, I wanted the artwork to actually have, like, the sun is off to the side, so there's actually going to be light coming in from one of the directions. And so because the general subject matter is actually going to be in this section here, I put the sun over further and have the light coming in from the left. So that's what I was thinking about. So starting the artwork, it was actually sketched and blocked out first, and then once I got to that point I was comfortable, then I started thinking about the sky and the lighting overall to help me build the scene together. The light on the building here in this particular image is coming from the right, and so we want to change that. So if you're ever in a situation like this is kind of how I approach it. So the first thing I do is I always reference my values when I'm working, just to help me see how the image looks without color, just to get a good idea of the values in the scene. So this area here is quite dark in comparison to the foreground, but I'm just going to kind of bring it up to where I think it should be in relation to the lighting and the rest of the scene at the moment. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to select the area here, add a base curves just to adjust the lighting. So you can see here where the grass is kind of meeting this dirt patch here. The idea is that you kind of want to blend it as best you can so it feels like it's actually part of the scene. And obviously this is just the base adjustment, the initial adjustment, just to kind of bring up those blacks. They're very contrasty in this image, and that's good enough for now. So it kind of feels more like it's sitting in the scene better. So immediately you can tell the contrast is just very dark, and obviously light is coming from the left here, and so we want to give it a nice base adjustment just like that to begin with, to fit it into the scene a little bit better. In relation to the color, I can see actually that it's quite blue here on the road, so I'm going to add a hue saturation adjustment and just kind of desaturate it a little bit, because things that are in shadow are also lose saturation. So one thing with curves is if you make a curves adjustment and darken something, elements in shadow will generally lose saturation. So I kind of pull that down a little bit. It's going to go back to my curves and just see if I need to adjust the blues, because I can see it's very blue. So if I go back to my curves and I go to my blue curve and just maybe just make a slight adjustment on that curve. Yeah, just to kind of pull some of those tones down. Just like that. And we can adjust it later. I'm not going to go too much into the color adjustment, but that's actually okay for now. So if I go back to my values, I can see that, yeah, like I said before, the light is kind of hitting this side of the building here. So the first thing I want to do is I'm actually going to take my lasso tool and actually just lasso the areas quickly that are receiving light. And then I'll quickly show you how to fix it and then add light from a different direction. And it's works pretty well. So if I just select this front area here, just like that, and then if I create a curves and then just pull those highlights down, if I just check my values, I can see where I feel like it would be sitting in shadow, like just there. Right, so we're going to do the same here. Then I'm just going to just make sure my foreground color is white, and then I'm on PC. I just press Alt and backspace to apply a fill, and it will just fill that in there. So we can see that it's quite similar tone now as the actual shadow area. So I'll just continue doing the highlights quickly and then show you about the hue saturation adjustment. So again, I'm just going to select this area here which has some sunlight. Not going to be too picky, just this area. Apply that. Again over here, just there. Just these areas that are receiving the light. You don't have to be too strict. So that's the mask that I've made of all the areas. So if I just flick that on and off, if I go here, you see it's almost like the light is gone off that area. There is this patch here, actually, which we could adjust just for the sake of it. Yeah, and we'll just apply that anyway, just for the sake of it. Okay. So you'll see now, right, and so it's reasonably close. We can make some slight adjustments here. Just there, and I would probably just leave it there. I don't need to worry too much. So once you've got a decent mask of the areas that are lit up, you'll see that there is a saturation difference between the areas that were in light and the areas that weren't. The quickest way is if I just go underneath that curve. So I'm just going to add another hue saturation adjustment, and then just holding Alt, I'll just copy that mask onto this one and just desat. So simple desaturation, yeah, will actually just fix up that whole front area now. So it looks closer to what it would look like in shadow, looking like it's in shadow now. Right, and so since the light is now coming from the left side, we just, in our minds, think about where the light would be hitting. So I'm going to think, okay, the light might be hitting here. So I'm going to select that area and then add another curves. And then I'm just going to bring up the highlights maybe to there. So I'm going to add a little bit here. Yeah, I'm just going to dramatize it for the moment. And then just in here, maybe like this. And if I get my brush, just brush that away here. It's kind of like fading down there. And then put some light coming over here. Maybe like that. Yeah, just like that. We can fix that in a moment. So there's kind of light coming through this way. And then maybe even over here. We will fix this up. And then if I just get my brush, let's kind of fade that across. And then just take it off here. Oops. Just like that. Yeah, it's kind of like this, like sun's coming across through the trees back there. And then just in here, I'll just do the same here. So it's kind of hitting that part of the, and then just maybe something interesting like this. And then this part. And I'm pretty happy with that for now. We can make adjustments later, but that's essentially like if the light was coming here across from the left, is I will probably just get my brush and just soften up this edge here. Seems a little bit strong. Maybe like that. And I'll leave that line kind of harsh because it's kind of like maybe hitting a part of the building there. Okay, so the next thing is the light's really bright and white, blue. So we're just going to take some of the blue out of it. If I go to my blue, just pull that blue down. So I'm paying attention here to the color of the sky. So I take some of the blue out and take some of the green. And maybe add a little bit of red. Maybe add a bit more green back in. Take a little bit of blue out. We're kind of getting closer now to, probably too much. Getting closer to that sky kind of tone as it would be hitting the ground there. So maybe take some of that green back a little. Maybe a bit more blue. Whoops. Tiny bit out. Maybe something like that. So then, depending on if you want it less strong, you can kind of just adjust the opacity. Probably take it down. 100's a bit strong. We could adjust the line here, but I'll just prefer to just adjust the opacity so you can see what it looks like. And so that's kind of what I wanted to show you, was just relighting and a couple of things. So just masking out quickly with the lasso tool on areas that are highlighted. Adding a shadow. So we do the base adjustment just to get the overall lighting at a base level, and then maybe hue saturation adjustment, and then we do the shadows on the highlighted areas. So here, that's what we masked out, and then because of the saturation, we pull the saturation back on that masked area by copying that mask to the hue saturation. And then on top of that, we then do our new lighting curves. So you can add multiple levels of lighting if you want to get more advanced and try different techniques. But that's kind of an idea of like where you're thinking about the light coming from a different direction. So that's the before and that's the after. So you can see the difference when the light's coming from a different direction. You can actually change it and it still looks quite realistic. So that's kind of all I wanted to talk about today, just showing those couple of things. One little thing I do as well with light is, if you use the lasso tool like I do, a quick technique to soften up the edges of the lasso tool is just to get your smudge tool, click on your mask, and then just kind of smudge out those harsh lines just to make it a little bit more realistic, I suppose. So yeah, that's what I want to show you today. If you've got any questions or if there's anything you want to know, please let me know in the comments, because I want to know more about what you guys might be struggling with, what you want to know, and it helps me to make content that I know you will be interested in watching. So yeah, thanks for watching, and yeah, I'll see you guys again soon.